As property investors, we spend all this time, energy, effort, resources to try and find the investment grade location. Spend all the time getting our mortgage broking in order. We save for our deposit. We put our blood, sweat and tears into property investing. At the last hurdle, we speak to an agent, we pick up the phone, and we get scared. We get stuck and we don't know what to say, and the agent ends up ripping us off $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So what do? You become an expert in negotiation. And that's exactly what this session is. We had Scott Aggett of Hello House. He is an absolute expert property negotiator, been doing it for 30 years, and he tells us actionable insights. What should we be saying? What are the problems that normally investors trip up on? What are the common tactics that real estate agents are using? And at the end of this thing, we go through a role play where I am pretending to be the real estate agent, he's pretending to be the buyer, and what happens? How does it work? What do we say to each other, and how do we get the best results? Hey everyone, my name is Joe Tucker, and together with Jeff Mars, we created Australia's largest property investment forum. And why is it so big? It's because we give people the tips, the tools, the tactics to become better property investors. Each and every day, we are buying investment grade properties, and we will teach you how to do exactly the same thing and go through the challenges and experiences that we go through in buying investment grade properties. So join the group, learn and grow, subscribe, like, do everything that you need to do in this channel, because each and every week we're going to bring you some experts, and that's a promise. That's what we'll do. We're going to jump into this episode with Scott Aggett. Enjoy. Throw any comments in, because this conversation gets quite wide ranging, and there are so many different nuances in property negotiation, and we'd love to hear from you. We read every single comment, and let's jump in.
We're live on Us Property Investors. We bring the big names and we have the big fun. How are you going, Scott? Young expert.
I'm good. I'm ready for some big fun. Bring it.
That's it.
Bring the energy. Bring the energy. That's what we want.
Let's go.
Let's go. It's going to be fantastic, because tonight we are going to be talking about negotiation. So there is an absolute interest in this, and there's been, I think this has been one of the most registered sessions. Like last week we had Perth, like Ash Goodchild. Check that out, because that is absolutely an exploding session for many reasons. But this is probably the most interested session since the last time we had you on a couple of months ago, Scotty. So it's going to be great. We're talking negotiation. Awesome. Because it's one of those things that scares people. They're like, oh, the agent's like going to tell me all the things, they're going to present all these things, they're going to say I need to offer more, and it's just all that thing that you can never learn too much about this, and always those tips and tactics. So it's going to be great. How you going, Joe? What's happening?
Mate, I'm well. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we only had Scotty on just not too long ago.
It's 3 months ago. Over 3 months?
4 months ago. Yeah, nearly 4 months.
Bloody
Crazy.
hell, just add on.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely fine, mate. There's a lot we didn't cover, because this is the problem with negotiation, right? It is you do all of the energy and effort of getting all the paperwork done. You chat with the broker, you save your ass off for a deposit. You then research an area, you spend months doing that. You try and find all these properties, and then at the last minute, you screw up the negotiation because you don't know what the hell you're doing. And it's like, how do we make sure that we don't screw that up? And why I wanted to get you back on, Scotty, was that we spoke a lot about like what we should be saying as an investor, but I also want to hear like, what does the agent say back to us? What are some of the things that we should expect from the agent? And unpack that. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped for that, mate. How have you been anyway?
Yeah, cool. I'm good. Well, I think you probably feel like you've seen me recently, because you saw me recently. You bought me lunch on a hot date last week. And all my negotiation tactics, going back and forth over the hamburger together. So, these are
you did really well. I ended up paying for all of that. So, whatever you did, good negotiation worked well.
Jeff, we missed you, mate. We owe you a beer. We'd love to see you soon.
Yeah, several beers, and I'll buy a couple back. But no, so tonight we're going to be we were talking before about what this is going to be all about, and it's going to be, well, what are you seeing in the sort of current market? Is it sort of softening? Is it hot? But I just want to hear, are there any kind of new latest and greatest negotiation tactics you're finding? Because last time you talked about sort of support, using that word support. Do we support that? And any patterns at that level you mentioned, and really sort of excitingly, we're going to be talking about the scenarios and the scripts, because that's where people were absolutely loving the value there. and we'll finish off with how to give yourself the best opportunity to get your offer accepted, and sort of the sort of juncture points and the storytelling and all those sort of fun things. So that's going to be a whole heap of value. So I'm excited. But
nice.
First off, before we introduce you, for people who haven't heard, I want to know, Mr. Scott, how did you, because I don't think I've asked you this before, how did you get started what was the reason you got started in property? Why did you start as an agent?
Because I got 33.05% in the HSC, and the best thing that I could do at school was grubber a footy across the playground straight into a bin on like the sort of the sixth bounce. I had no interest whatsoever in studying school, but I loved chatting. I loved property. I kind of grew up with it with my parents a little bit as well. So when we did school work experience,
we lost him. Poor Scott.
We do need him. We definitely need him for this session.
Wings.
Oh yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, back now. Sorry, I heard that you did work experience, and then it cut out.
I did work experience with Peter Matthews, who's just been the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales president. And Pete is a extended family member, and he went through school about 6 years ahead of me at the same school. And yeah, I just asked Pete if I could come and work with him, and did 2 weeks worth experience at Ray White in Bankstown, and then Pete was at head office, and he was a great auctioneer. He's done the block and lots of other things since then. And Pete just kind of, wheeled me around different Ray White offices and stuff after I left school and after I did my 1 year full-time real estate degree. So yeah, I kind of fell into it that way and then just never looked back. So really started when I was probably 15, and then really into the industry when I was about 17 and a half, 18.
What kept you in real estate? Because you've been in the game for 25 years. Like, what is it that keeps you in it and keeps you there?
Well, 17 and then 47 is more than 25, unfortunately. So a few years even more than that, buddy. Yeah. I think the best part about real estate when you're a real estate agent is that it's just constantly, the game just constantly changes every week. Like, you've got sales targets to hit, you're meeting so many people, you're competing to win listings. It's a very fast-paced life. It's high paid. It's really dominated by outcomes, like results. So I thrived on that. I need that kind of push to keep going. So I enjoyed that part of it until I kind of got burnt by that industry. And thanks, Jordan. Yeah. And then after that, like when I got out of it, really and sold my Bell franchises, I really just, for 10 years before that, I'd kind of been dreaming of, well, what if you could just be a negotiator all day? What if you could just do the bit of the job that you really love and you thrive at, and you could kind of have a lifestyle by design? So it took me about 10 years to kind of back myself really to go and do that, because it still really isn't a job in Australia. I think we've kind of created a niche for it with Hello House. So then that was another challenge for me, another sort of startup business. And I'd done 3 of those before that with my 3 different Bell franchises. And that was something that just lit me up and keeps me driving. And it still does today. I still love doing it. The negotiation, every day, every client is different, every deal, as much as we'll talk about tonight, patterns and things like that you consistently see, and there's things that you learn that you can apply throughout that period. You forever get curveballs. I had a curveball today that I've never had. And I liaised with one of my lead negotiators who's been an expert agent for over 10 years. And he said, I've never, ever seen that scenario play out. So
what was the curveball?
Random things. Yeah, well, we can jump into that now if you want to. I had negotiated to buy a property yesterday that was on the market in Brisbane. It was an apartment in West End. And the advertising was offers over 870. We'd done our analysis at 955. It was a 6-person best and final offer process. We'd only been involved for less than 24 hours. The client engaged us on Monday, and we bought it yesterday. We thought we bought it. That's the story. Anyway, we went in at 940,000 with our offer and secured the property and got the deal done. The agent told us, congratulations, all sorted, all done. The client is the developer. It might take us 5 or 6 hours to get this thing signed off and done and dusted and get it back to you. Then that went, so that was Monday night, actually. That ran into Tuesday morning. I had surgery yesterday, so I was offline for about 7 hours. In that time, Colin from my team took over, and all he was doing was waiting for effectively the contract to be signed. And then today, I chased the agent, and the agent never responded all day. And then the principal of the real estate office rang me and said, "I'm really sorry. Like, this has never happened to us in 25 years, but we took instructions from someone in the developer's team that owns the developers that own the property, and they were never aligned. It turns out we had the wrong instructions. They were never interested in selling it offers over 870. They've denied all 6 offers, including yours, which we had verbally accepted, and they want 990,000. Otherwise, they're not selling." And how we knew this was playing out behind the scenes during the day is because I got realestate.com alerts on my phone saying it's been advertised as offers over 950 and open for inspection this weekend. And I'm like, why would you do that if we've already exchanged contracts?
Yeah,
that makes no sense. So I was trying to dig into that, and then it all unraveled this afternoon. So yeah, I mean, even when you think you know it all, or not that I think I know it all, that's not the case, but even though you think you're very experienced in this space, these random things happen in real estate. That's not a fun one to unpack today, but yeah. It's just
I think that's how
the cookie crumbles.
That's a very important point, because I think speed kills on deals. If you do not move fast, and if you don't like push things along, like the way I describe it is, it's like a game of tennis, right? You've got the contract and you've got to exchange on that, and the ball is in no one's court. The ball's just floating around there until you hit it back to the vendor with an offer. So you hit the offer to them, they either accept it or reject it. You get that put onto a piece of paper, and then once you've signed it, if you take ages to sign that contract after getting it reviewed by your conveyancer, if you take ages, they can still go off with the ball and run off and go get a better price. And then you've got to hit it back to them, and they have to sign it for the exchange. So I see a lot of people that get the contract sent to them, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening? This is scary. What happens next? I'm kind of concerned." But they take ages to sign, and then it just disappears. The agent's like, "Okay, this guy's not serious. We're going to move on to the next person," and then they get gazumped in a way. It's, you got to move faster. You got to get the contract, get it reviewed as fast as possible, and then sign it. And then the most important thing is to chase up the agent as much as possible of, where the hell's my offer? Like, has the vendor exchanged on it? Because once the vendor signs, you now have control that you can pull out of the deal if you have the right clauses in place, like a pest and building and a finance, but the vendor can't pull out. Well, technically they can, but they rarely ever do. So it's very important to make sure that you're getting the exchange actually actioned. But who is this Scott Aggett guy anyway, Jeff? Who is he? I don't know. I want to break down the man, the myth, the legend.
I think you updated, and I was going to say this as well, but you have been active in buying, selling real estate for decades. In fact, over 3 decades now, and balancing, sort of looking at sort of all sides, and that's where you started off as you said, a real estate agent, a principal of Bell, and one of the leading in Sydney. And you've now overseen around sort of 4,000 transactions. See, that's just a few. That's just a couple. and that's what close to over 100 per year, or actually it's more like 150 roughly per year. Don't quote me there. And I suppose as well, you sort of look at the game playing, the strategies, the mistruths, and all that sort of stuff. And you've purchased 29 now, so number 30 is coming up eventually, or pretty soon, I'm sure. And your goal, I suppose, is to make sure that people don't overpay, which I suppose is the way that your incentives are aligned with the client that you're sort of working with and for. And you're passionate about that sort of getting buyer ready sort of course that you've got, which we'll hear a little bit about in the show. But you're also a dad and a keen traveler, so you do love that. You get across to Japan, you've got that lodge over there, so that's who you are.
Well, Scotty Aggett, can you explain the difference between what you do and what a buyer's agent is, right? Because I think that would be valuable, because I'm a buyer's agent. I go out there and I find, negotiate, secure amazing deals for clients. But what you've done is created a bit of a different business. Can you explain what it is and how it all works? And then that's going to give context for the people going forward.
Sure. So the simplest thing to explain is 3% of Australians, approximately, there's no real accurate data on this, outsource their property purchase to a full service buyer's agent. So I would classify that as a done for you. Okay. I've built a business focused on the 97% of Australians who go it alone, and I would call that a done with you service. So we've built a hybrid model where we want the client involved in the journey rather than them outsourcing it. Now, fundamentally, the reason that I've done that is I believe no one's going to respect your money as much as you, and that it's the biggest financial outlay potentially.
Poor bloke. It doesn't the upgrade doesn't like him. But Joe, what do you?
Yeah. Well, sorry, I dropped out again just then. Where did it drop out?
Cut you out again. Just
question.
Start that again.
I reckon there's something about sort of the difference between the buyer's agent and the negotiator.
Sure. So I'll start that again. So 3% of Australians outsource to a full service buyer's agent. 97% of Australians go it alone. We've built a hybrid service to work with those customers that go it alone. Fundamentally, the reason why we've done that is I believe no one's going to respect your money as much as you. And it's one of life's biggest financial outlays. So I believe that you need to be in the hot seat to a certain degree to understand what the deal flow looks like, understand the challenges in that marketplace you're purchasing in, and understand the opportunities. So rather than a buyer's agent dictating and narrating the quality of the property that you're going to see or the volume of property that you're going to see, you sit in the seat and understand all of those things, but then you're surrounded by an expert team who can take care of all of the negotiation work, all of the analysis and due diligence, and control the pre and off market strategy. So we have a streamlined system that reduces the amount of time the customer is involved, but they've got great clarity about what's happening in their marketplace. So I feel that empowers them. The other thing that we've done very differently is we've got a low cost, I believe, very affordable performance-driven fee. Our fee structure is $5,950 for people that are buying their own property, or $7,950 for investors. So we've priced ourselves at a different position to the traditional buyer's agent model, which is normally $15,000 plus. So we've really focused on, I guess, more of a volume-based business and really focused on deep analysis and deep negotiation. The other issue that I have, not with you, Joe, because I know that you go to great lengths to service your clients and get the best results, but because of the rise of the buyer's agent genre in Australia, and I've watched this from the front of this market or this front of this event occurring when I was on the other side of the fence as a real estate agent, I don't believe there's a lot of buyer's agents that are new to the industry that have the skill set that I do in understanding the nuts and bolts of how to do a transaction. So I think not only is there an advantage in the client being involved with our method that I believe is the right way to do it, but I also think that we can add a lot of value in terms of the negotiation that some less experienced people don't have that advantage. So we do about, at the moment, we buy about 8 to 10 properties a week. We've doubled our business in the last 6 months. We'll probably triple our business in 2024. So it's an exciting time. It's growing really fast, and it resonates with the market as an alternative to going it alone or using a full service buyer's agent. And there's a time and a place for both of those services, I think, like Hello House and your traditional buyer's agent. But I'm really passionate about people not going it alone, because I think those two skill sets, analysis and negotiation, are two independent career skills. And unless you can do that, and I don't expect any layperson or general buyer in the marketplace has got the ability to out-analyze a professional analyst or out-negotiate a professional negotiator. So therefore, I really believe people are leaving money on the table and losing opportunities.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing when it comes to negotiation is every time if you pay a small amount of money or a large amount of money to a real estate agent, you never actually know if you got the actual best price, right? It's only until, like, I had somebody come to me and they're like, "Hey, Joe, I'm like, so why are you interested of using someone else rather than going out there by yourself?" He's like, "I just bought a property." I'm like, "Okay, great. How did that go?" He's like, "I just paid $540,000 for it. And then I realized that when I got the broker to do the check for the bank, it came back $40,000 less from a valuation standpoint. And I realized I paid $30,000 more than the highest offer that was out there. The only reason why that came back was because the bank said, hell no, we can't justify this amount of money. We're not going to give you our 80% lend because that doesn't make any sense at that price. You need to get the price down." And it's like, if that went through, if the bank didn't flag that with you, he would have just paid the price, and he would have thought, "Oh, well, I got a great deal on that." But it's knowing the market and knowing the price of things, which I think is incredibly, incredibly important. But this is not about that, mate. I want to understand the scripts and dialogues of what a transaction looks like. But before we do that, you've got a little course that you not a little course. It's a good course, actually. I run
a great course, yeah.
It's great. I run everyone in my business through this course. So we'll run this little thing and then we'll chat.
Sure.
There's nothing worse than going into a situation unprepared, especially when that situation is purchasing one of the most expensive assets of your life against a trained property expert in the form of a real estate agent. It's a scary thought, but it is a skill that can be taught. Do you want to learn how to become fully prepared when buying a property so you can get out there, buy your dream home or investment property without the fear of actually messing it up? Scott Aggett, the founder and expert property negotiator at Hello House, has been helping people buy their properties by stepping in and negotiating with the agents and saving his clients tens of thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. Scott has now decided to share all that he's learned over the past 28 years in real estate so you can go out there and do the exact same thing on how to find a property, analyze that property, negotiate on that property, and transact on it to get the best results. He's created the Get Buyer Ready course, which is a step-by-step guide on how you too can become an expert property negotiator. It's the easy way of how you can avoid all of these agent games and get the best purchase price on that dream home or your investment property. The course is in short bites for busy people with no fluff at all. Just all the information you need to get buyer ready and secure that next property with confidence at the best price. Scott has been kind enough to give our community a massive discount with the link below. Sign up today before you even think about putting an offer on that next property, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever make. Well, there you go.
So first off, I want to set the scene, set the context. So you want to look at how to actually get to a stage where you're ready to buy or have those requirements. I've dropped a YouTube in the link. We talked about that, and we have talked about it on previous sessions. So I think we're going to jump straight into it. If people have specific questions about how to establish value and all that sort of thing, I think we'll touch on it a little bit here and there. But just throw those questions in, and we'll get to them, and we can unpack those as well. But I think for the purpose of this, I want to get to the nuts and bolts, as Joe said, of the scenarios and the scripts. So what does
also anyone that's got? I would like anyone that's in the comments to throw a scenario out. There's got to be, you've had a chat with a real estate agent and they've thrown something at you, and you're like, how do I respond back to that? Because I think that's like some real world stuff from the audience would be super valuable to hear as well. Sorry, Jeff.
No, that's all right. I wanted to start because we'll get to what sort of people can do right. But first off, I wanted to understand. I like to see what.
Sorry, I'm back now. That keeps freezing. I keep missing you for about 30 seconds, but go for it. I lost you for 15 seconds there. As long as you guys can keep going. If you see me silent, it's because the internet's dropping for some problem.
Oh no, it's all good. It's all good. So I wanted to sort of ask, what do people do wrong in their negotiation up front? And then we'll sort of unpack. We'll get to those scripts and those scenarios where you can really start to nail them. So what do they do wrong so we can understand those things?
Well, I think even just before you talk about the negotiation, as a buyer, I think what you do wrong is go in on the understanding when you're talking to buyers that you can kind of fumble your way through the process. You can disclose some of the things that you don't quite realize you're giving away, and then they can come back to haunt you later. So I know you've been talking about a few of the things that I've been writing on LinkedIn lately, and I've made a specific point about that in terms of, as an agent, because I know Joe wants to get into that kind of agent mindset as well. As an agent, I'm recording all of that data against you, which is going to get then used against you at a later point. Now, I might be doing that as part of my job as an agent to maintain a really clear understanding of how that sales campaign is running. So I'm recording information that I'm going to share with my sellers along the lines of who inspected, how many times they've inspected, what dates, what all their feedback is, what properties they've offered on previously, do they have finance approval and to what level, what properties they've offered on elsewhere. Have they had a contract review? Have they done a building a pest or a strata inspection report? So there's a whole heap of information like that I'm color coding the level of interest that those buyers have got, sending that through to my vendors as a daily reminder of how hard I'm working for them and what's happening in real time on their property. But that same spreadsheet, if you think about things as a buyer, is being used against you later in the negotiation. So a long way around to answer your question, Jeff, but I think that it starts not necessarily in the negotiation, but it starts at open for inspections. It starts on the very first phone calls when you're talking to people. one of the key things that buyers will say to me is, why would you disclose the budget that I've got? So the myth to start with that I think is the first challenge that everyone deals with as a buyer is, I don't want to give away any of my personal information. I want to keep those cards really close to my chest. But I think it's powerful to engage the agents with the real number that you're looking for, so that it shortens your days on market. And we've spoken about this on previous sessions. The trick then, of course, when you get to the negotiation, is to remove budget from the conversation, switch that around, and create the conversation around value and where the value sits. So that's a really important way of getting rid of that elephant in the room around price. But it starts with being honest around price to get the right property sent to you. And then it starts with asking the right questions and not showing your cards. Like, a few of my buyers I remember were lit up in lights when they'd come through and open for inspection, almost like they've got a red dot on their forehead. When I was an agent, I can just go, boom, you're my buyer. Thank you for coming through the door. And it's because they put off those signals where, this is something that I really want to buy. I'm really in love with this property. And of course, that can be overdone when you're talking about principal place of residence. If you're talking about investors, to bring it back to what's relative here, it could be that the way that you talk and your enthusiasm around the property, and your eagerness to kind of get the information out of them and rush through that process could be a warning sign to an agent that, okay, this guy's just red hot. You just told me your life story about all these other properties that you miss. So therefore, I'm going to set you up here to pay more than possibly what you have to pay to secure that property. So it's asking the right questions. It's giving the right level of information to clients that then sets you up for that negotiation when you get to that point. Long-winded answer, sorry, but hopefully that kind of sets you up for.
What's the right level of information that you should be giving?
Well, I think some of the things that buyers would tell you is, if you've told them the budget, that's fine. We've just explained that. But if you've told them that you've just missed out at 6 different auctions, and that you're really over this process. I've had all these sort of things thrown to me all the time as an agent. Like, I'm just over this. We just want it ended. Okay, great. Well, I'll end it for you. Just pay a fucking absolute massive premium, and I'll end it for you right now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's things that you do say, and there's things that you just don't need to say. It's too much information. So, of course, you want to tell them that you've got the capacity to act. Of course, you can tell them that the budget is this, to begin with, and that you're really keen on the property, or you're eager to wrap something up and you've been looking for a little while. They're all fine things to say. But if you just take it that little bit too far, you give them too much information, and you give them a reason to latch onto something, to press really hard as a pressure point, to engage you and, really pull on your emotional cord there, or get you, all hot and heavy about a property that you don't want to miss. That's where you've got the ability to get sucked into that emotional element and overpay. Yeah.
So
these are all really subtle things, but
yeah, what are the mistakes? Like, what are the things that people are kind of walking in and just like the clear, obvious when like that put that? Are there any others that put that dot on their head of gotcha?
Yeah, I think people that have got absolutely no idea what they're looking to buy, and this is a really common one for me as an agent, that an investor would come through and say, okay, cool, I've got up to 600,000 to spend, but, I could spend 800,000. What's your budget? Oh, I don't really have a budget. Okay, cool. What are you looking for? Oh, it could be like an apartment, townhouse, something in Surrey Hills, house maybe as well. It's like, okay, cool. Like, this is just a case of, I can really easily stitch you up because you don't understand the dynamics at play in this marketplace. You don't understand the value pockets. You really are just looking for someone that says, okay, Jeff, I hear you. You don't have a clue. You need someone to hold your hand. I'm going to take you down this windy road. I'll hold your hand the whole way, and I'm going to lead you to the finish line. And it's going to be nice and easy for you just while I'm fleecing you the whole time. Right, you're going to buy whatever I want you to pay. You buy at whatever price that you're going to pay for it. Right. So a smarter buyer would come to the table and say, okay, great. I'm looking for a 3-bedroom apartment or whatever it's going to be. Right, 3-bedroom house. It's got to meet these criteria. I don't want to be on a busy road. It's got to be within this school zone. It's got to be on a minimum 120 square meters in Surrey Hills, as that example. It's got to have rear lane access for parking, and it's got to be as close to turnkey as possible. And my budget is 1.6. Okay, that's all we've got to work with. That to me goes, okay, that's a switched on buyer. They're not going to have the wool pulled over their eyes because they really dialed in on what it's going to cost them to buy that asset, where that asset's going to be, and what specifically it looks like in the condition it's in. Different negotiation altogether. that starting point where you kick off things.
I wanted to throw this one from Jordan De Jong. He's tuned in tonight. He doesn't always tune into everyone, so should be privileged he's watching along. So he said, when you absolutely love a property, what's the good level of letting the agent know you're keen on a property, but not showing the cards that you want this one at all costs? How do you do that?
Before I answer that, I left a quarter of a bottle of Chardonnay at your house last Saturday night, and unless you return it, I'm not answering any more of your questions.
Quarter of
it's holding you hostage to the
week and a half quarter bottle of Chardonnay. Jesus.
No, I mean, if you absolutely love a property, how hard do you go at it? I mean, I think it's really fine as a buyer to say, we love this property. It's absolutely our preference. We want to buy it if it fits within our budget parameters and where we see fair market value. Let's talk. Yeah, because you're saying to an agent, I am really here. Don't go and sell it to someone else. If there is other interest in that property, let us know. We're putting our hand up to say we've got an interest in this property. But we want to work through the due diligence. We want to work through where the comparable sales are. Talk to me about where you think the best comparable for this property is. Talk to me about that sale. And then, you engage with them like that. So you're absolutely saying you want to buy that property. There's no gray area there, but you're not saying it with a red dot on your forehead, like I'm a sucker, rip me off. You're saying, great, okay, well, let's work as a team here and hopefully we can make this happen. We'd really like to buy it for the family. Where do we need to be positioned? Talk me through the comparable sales evidence. What do you think the challenges are with this house in terms of capital growth and saleability? This is one of the weak points of the home that we believe. Is that going to be something that you think has been a challenge in selling the home? Is that been brought up by other purchasers, or do you think that can be overcome in the marketplace or whatever it is? The reason I'm talking like this is because I'm just dropping negatives into the conversation, right? But I'm doing it in a conversationalist way. I'm just saying, hey, one of the challenges for us is it's a really tight block of land and it's narrow at the back. Has that been a sticking point for some of the other buyers? Has that been, what I mean? You're planting that seed already. It's not the perfect house. We really want to buy it. We want to pay a fair price, but it's not the perfect home. Because what the agent's going to go do when you put an offer on the table is go back to that seller and say, look, guys, we've got our buyer. They really love the house, but there's challenges with this house. And we've told you this before. It's narrow at the back. It goes into an odd shape. It does get a little bit of road noise. And that's why we're not getting interest at 1.6. We're getting interest at 1.5. These guys are at 1.51. I think this is probably going to be your buyer. They're at the table. They're really lovely to deal with. Do you think we can get a deal here together? So you've got to empower the agent to work for you in that instance. But what I'm doing is dropping in little things that I can just stitch into the negotiation. But I'm doing it in a nice, calm way. No one's arguing and fighting. I'm not using a sledgehammer saying that fucking block of land sucks, man. You've got to take my offer by 6 o'clock, otherwise I'm out. None of that stuff works. You just subtle, but you get your point across and you use it to your advantage.
Subtle Steve or subtle Sally absolutely works because recently, what is? I was chatting to, there was a deal I was looking at and the agent, there was a tenant in place and we chatted about it and we're like, oh yeah, still looks great and all that sort of stuff. And he sort of said, we're actually open to working with the potential buyer to do this. And so it was just and it was like, well, I'll talk to my sort of person I'm helping out and all that sort of stuff. And he really wanted, the agent was almost bending over backwards to try, maybe because there wasn't a lot of interest. But if I'd just gone in and said, well, no, the tenant has to go out, absolutely. I imagine the agent would have just said, well, no, you're too hard to deal with. We'll go on to the next buyer. We'll just wait a couple of months for the property to be vacant. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I tend to agree.
And it creates you opportunities, right? So if it's not that property for whatever reason that doesn't come together, you've had a fantastic relationship with that agent. And you can say, well, it wasn't meant to be down at Smith Street, but if you can find anything like that, we're a red hot buyer ready to sign a contract. We'd love to work with you and get a deal done. They're the buyers that you go out of your way for.
He called me up again last Friday and said, oh, we got this deal a colleague of mine has. And I was like, oh, yeah, thanks. I really appreciate you sending across. I hadn't flicked him an email, which is my sort of communication. That's that's one
again, my internet's.
Gee, I thought it was me again. But no.
Nah. Well, I think that that it also needs to be a bit of a different consideration for. Yeah, I think what I was saying, Scotty, is it needs to be a bit of a different consideration from an investment perspective and an owner-occupier perspective as well. How do you think about investment versus owner-occupier if you're going into that kind of negotiation debate? Well,
I think it can be quite similar to it. I mean, you don't have to use the words, we can really envisage ourselves living here, or it's in the right school zone, or whatever it might be. But you can do the same thing from an investment perspective and have the same quality conversations with people. You just need to bring it down to a human level. And I think with a lot of investors, that's a challenge, because they're looking at it as it's a very data-driven decision. They're non-emotional, and they can be more aggressive or more to the point, direct to the point when they're trying to negotiate to win these things, because it only works for them at a certain number or they're out. And it doesn't always work like that. So you've got to realize that the agent works and lives. And let's talk about very specifics. There's a lot of people in this group that are buying in regional areas. They're small towns.
Bloody caveman. Internet on old Scotty here.
Sorry, guys. I don't know why that keeps cutting out. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a regional location, small town like that, a lot of people know each other, right? And they would prefer to deal with a local person who they know, like, and trust, and who they may see at the pub or the sports club or wherever on the weekends, than deal with another interstate investor. So if you make yourself stand out as a pain in the ass, it's going to be difficult for you to get deals done. So it still requires you to bring that human element to it, engage with them in conversation as best you can. And look, I get it. I'm sure there'll be lots of people I see in this group all the time that say, how the hell can you buy in these markets? It's just, you don't even get a chance. You don't even get a second. It's over within the first open for inspection. Well, the trick to that is finding these properties at an earlier stage as best you can, and limit your buyer competition, and build rapport with these agents so that you get those future opportunities that others are not.
Yeah, and that's the biggest point. It is like you're going out there and you're putting a part-time effort into something and expecting full-time results. You have to build relationships with people. It's just like any other sales environment. If you want to, if someone likes you, they will go that extra little bit of a mile to help you out, because they like you, they know you, they trust you, they have a good relationship with you. And if you're just going in there really hard-nosed and difficult, it's gonna, you're just not going to get that result. You need to be putting effort in, building relationships with people. And there's people that you just don't get along with and that aren't going to give you the deals. And that's just reality. There are agents out there. We had an amazing agent from WA, Jeff Nikki DeRike, a couple of months ago. I have never, ever bought a property from this woman, because she is an incredible real estate agent. But I love her. Super friendly, super nice. Catch up with her every now and then and try and find out what kind of deals she's got out there. But she'll never sell me off market or pre-market. But that's okay. I'm still friendly with her. I still like her. But you need to find those agents that are willing to do the negotiations, that are willing to give you those pre-markets. That just takes a little bit of time. But build the relationships with those guys. They're the ones that you want.
I want to do something maybe a little bit. Let's do a bit of free balling, but that's a funny way of putting it. Shamir Hashim. He said, "Hi. Recently, I've been looking in Townsville. We all know Townsville is absolutely going pretty gangbusters at the moment. It's starting to see a lot of growth. Not the next Perth, I'd say, but who knows? The property market is quite hot there, and the weather's also quite hot too. Most properties are asking 30 to 50K above the comparative market analysis. Property manager helping me advised to submit an offer. So what I want to say is, because we're talking about scripts and scenarios, I wanted to turn this into a scenario, because so you're buying in a super hot market, let's just say maybe in Gladstone, Townsville, Perth. Insert any hot market, maybe in Adelaide to some extent still. What are you sort of doing? You see a property gets listed. What do you do from here, Scott? What do we do first?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is act with absolute speed, as Joey said at the start, because speed is paramount to buying success with everything we do. So we try to control these properties or these negotiations within the first, say, 72 hours and get a result. We've been doing a bit of statistics in the office as well about, this is slightly off topic, but addresses that point, about if we miss it within that first 72 hours, the likelihood of us ever circling back to that property is almost zero. So
really,
if we don't see value, if we don't see value in that property right then, it's highly unlikely it'll sell within that value parameter at any stage. So either the owner's in la la land, or it sells to some other monkey who pays a stupid price for it, where there's no comparable sales evidence, and we're happy to let it go. So speed is the first thing. And then I've used this so much in the group, and it almost gets tiring to a certain degree to just harp on the same thing. But it's so important that we use it, every day in our sort of arsenal of tricks or bag of tricks is leverage. Like leverage is just, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, or you think it's a sham or not, it's just part of being a really good negotiator is to be able to anchor to another property or the perception of another opportunity that you've got, utilize that leverage to then put you in a position where you try your best to reverse the fear of loss, and you put the vendor under time pressure, and you control that negotiation as best as possible. So in Townsville specifically, this could be anywhere, but in Townsville, to answer that question, what you'll find is when you're competing against a lot of less experienced buyers is that often people need time to make a decision. So the time to strike to knock them out is right then. So that's part of it, is speed is going to help you there. Second part of it is if you believe that they're going to run a process and it's going to take 5 days or 7 days, that leverage may come into play then. Using that, as I said, to anchor onto another property and say that you won't be here in that process. And then the third thing is if it's a multi-offer situation, we put ourselves in that position by talking, again, like a human and just building rapport really quickly with these agents to basically buy ourselves an opportunity to have the last right of refusal. And this is if anything you take away from tonight, this is probably one of the number one things that we use in a rising market that works for us the most. And this is a trick that I hate saying out loud because it's so simple to use, but then everyone's going to use it against us as well in the same scenario. But what we do that works way more than you'd even believe, and it's just insane to think how high the percentage is that this works for us on a day-to-day basis, and we do this a lot every week, is that in a multi-offer situation, and to address this point, whether you're buying off-market or on-market, everyone wants the result. So you have to have a strategy of buying things on-market because 60 to 80% of the time it's going to end up on realestate.com. And in these boom markets where you're buying investment properties, whether you like it or not, and whether any buyer's agent tells you they buy everything off-market, if they're realistic and they're trying to buy it at the right price, and they're trying to show you the whole market, then you're going to end up in a multi-offer situation at some point. What we do is we say to the agent, we know you've got to do your job. You've just done the first open for inspection on Saturday. We've sat in your chair before. We understand the role that you've got to do. Your job is to get the best price for the vendor, and we don't want to get in that way. We understand we're going to have to pay the top price if we're going to buy this property. We're not afraid of that if it's within the fair value range that we believe the home is worth. What I'd like to ask you as a favour, if I understand what your process is and you walk me through that, yep, it's going to be Monday, close of business, 6 o'clock, sealed bids, whatever it's going to be, best and finals. Yep, we've established that. What I'd like to ask of you is that if we make a knockout offer this afternoon here on Saturday, we make a really strong offer to try and, shorten that time frame that you've got to be invested in this process, knock out as much buyer competition, make this as easy as possible for you in that agency. Again, we've been there. I've got empathy. I know what you're going through. Want to make this as easy as possible, want to get you the best price, blah, blah, blah. Yep. If we make that knockout punch for you now, I'd like to ask you one small favor. I'd like your permission to go and exhaust all the other buyer interest and then come back and tell me what I need to pay to buy that property. And they're like, oh, no way, I wouldn't do that. Well, let's look at this. Let's break this down. All I'm saying is that either way, you're going to get the highest price. Either we can beat the highest price you get when you exhaust everybody and your vendor and you win, or you...
Oh, we lost him.
Getting to the juice. Get to the goods. Yeah. What do they say?
Right. Or you're going to sell it to your highest bidder, and you're going to sell it for the highest price either way, right? If we can't beat that price. So when we do that, very often, you'll be surprised, a really high percentage play get a yes. And they'll say, I've never heard of anyone asking this before. And that's pretty cool, in terms of that's fine by me. Yeah, have a go at it. Sometimes they say, no, get stuffed.
Yeah, so what is that's what I was going to say is what is the lost you now. What is the response rate to that? And what does that actually...
Oh, man. I'm so sorry.
What does it actually sound like, right? What are they? So they say, and always, every single time, no, I'm not doing that. And then you have to reiterate and go back and say, no, the reason I'm saying this is you're going to get the best price for your agent, for your vendor, but I want to beat that to get you the next best price. And then then what does it kind of sound like? Are they like, oh, cool, yeah, this is great? Or I mean, the majority.
What have they got? Think about it. What have they got to lose? Like they either sell it for the highest price or sell it for a higher price. So,
but what about in terms of truth, right? Like, let's just say they get it for $515. You know what? I'll do it, Scott. We got a $520. You got to beat it by $5,000.
Well, that only falls down if you don't know your numbers. You have to know your numbers, and if you don't know your numbers, you might as well put a gun to your head before you even start. We would never even look at a property unless we knew what we were going to pay for it before we started. Yeah. So
exactly. So then you get the first right of refusal, the final right of refusal to say, hey, Scott, just letting you know, the offer's at $520. And you're like, oh, cool. I was out at $512. So thank you very much. Have a good day. That works for me. That's fine. But at least you've gotten that result back to say, hey, you know what? That's out of my range. Actually, Mrs. Agent, sorry, or Mr. Agent. I'm fine with that. Great. 521. Let's do it.
And we just ask them, what have we got to pay to beat it? And they'll just tell you, like, usually it's $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever. And if it's within the parameters that you initially saw the value and you were prepared to pay, then we pay it, right? But it takes out that stress. Like, you could stress for 2 days that you're going to miss it. You stress that you put your offer out there and they use it against you as leverage with other buyers. So we just sit back and wait, and then they come to us and put it on a plate and say, what do you want to do? And say, I'm out. Sell it. Or, we'll buy it, done. So it's just a really easy trick like that works in a multi-offer situation in a competitive environment. And when you're buying...
Oh, no, we lost him again.
They don't have. This is the problem with the Gold Coast. They don't have the internet yet.
Why are people paying $2 million for a house in the Goldie?
I don't know why they bother. There's no internet in that place.
Yeah, sorry.
He's not moved great.
I don't know what's wrong. I just moved house, as you guys know, like 3 weeks ago, and I've got the best, supposedly the best internet in terms of it's 500 speed or whatever it is. And,
you need to negotiate a better deal with these guys.
I know. I know.
I wanted to know, Scott.
It's just tonight. It's just tonight. Thank God.
Yeah. In that situation, because is there a way? Because if I'm the person watching at home, I'm thinking, oh crap! If they tell me a number of 520 and I'm willing to pay 525, how do I know that I can't just do a bit of bluffing and say 515? And then how do you know that? Is there a way of telling that?
Because they're not going to. Once you've asked that question and they've run that process, they're telling you, I am selling for 515,000. Can you beat it? That's it. Yeah. There's no bluff. It's just, that's it. You either beat it or they're selling it right now in front of you. So no one else has got that opportunity except for you. So if you can put yourself in that position, you just give yourself an advantage that no one else has got.
And then sorry, go Jeff. I
was going to say, do you reckon, because let's just say if there's a term that I can throw, because do you then sort of understand, we say, well, what does that sort of 520 look like? Is that a cash unconditional? Is it a 40-day finance? And then say, cool, okay, I'm 515 cash unconditional. Does that get it done? Have you ever tried something like that?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yep, that comes into play for sure, is understanding what the other conditions are of those offers and throwing that into the mix as well. But traditionally, I would ask those questions up front to understand if you're going to have a bidding war, is everyone offering the same terms, or are you going to be looking at a whole different, raft of different conditions? And most of the time when you're buying in, let's say, Queensland or WA, it's almost always going to be, well, the offer, we're open for a building a pest and we're open for a finance clause. So, most people are competing on that basis, and they'll tell you straight away, well, we've got a 520 cash offer. So 525 with your shitty terms isn't going to do it. Like, you're going to have to beat this by 20,000 or, whatever it is for the owner to take on your finance clause and your building and pest. And sometimes you just won't win, right? Like and this is what you're competing against. You just cannot win them all. If someone's got a cash offer and no building and pest, well, then
it's all right.
I feel like he'll be back. Edit like this entire live. Just remove the blank space for the poor podcast listener.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I might try and see if I can change to hotspotting off my phone. I don't know if it's because I'm running RedTube off the other screen at the same time and it's downloading all the internet.
Definitely edit out that.
Okay. Yeah. As a PG show, I think. Okay, yeah, try that. We'll run the next ad and then do that in the back. Fucking paused.
Great thinking, Joe. It's all right. He knows what we're saying.
Yeah, no, hang on. Oh, he's doing that right now. Okay, cool. Well, let's run this ad and buy commercial property and all that.
Okay, I should be back.
The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases, it's cash flow positive from day one, which means that you can drive those profits towards paying down the debt. There are instances with commercial property investing where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely crazy. With commercial property, you get massive net yield, so you can expect anywhere between 6 to 10%. And as we've seen in the current boom, these properties not only provide large cash flow, they do certainly grow wildly in value too. Now, with big rewards comes some risk, and this is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. And the way you do that is with expert due diligence. And this is why we highly recommend people hire professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. Being a chartered mechanical and structural engineer in a past life, Steve draws on his analytical and mathematical skills to do that expert due diligence for you. With 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He's the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers and finding the best properties in the best locations, along with ensuring that you avoid the mistakes. Steve has actually even written the book on commercial property investing in Australia, and not only is it a bestseller, I believe it to be the most comprehensive in commercial property investing on the market today. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount for our audience of 50%. So use the code OZPROP, click the link below, get a copy today, and start learning and getting on your commercial property investing journey. Oh, you're on.
All right, guys. Hopefully it's all working now. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
You'd be right. I've put something better in the comments for Polisi. You can still get that course. I believe it's the end of, it's still happening. So we got that one. But you also got the book as well, which I think you still got the 100% off. So Scott,
okay, hang on. We got to this. Well, then what?
I don't even know what that meant. Well, where were we up to though? So we had
on the edge of
yeah, but it was.
I think it might have been when we were talking about that offer process then, and then it kept cutting out as I was talking. Yep. Yeah. So, but Dan, tell me if it was any other question, and I'll address it for you.
Yeah, definitely. I want to take us to a different sort of script and scenario because there's a couple there. The markets aren't all going up sort of 30% in the next 20 minutes. Sorry, it's ridiculous. But I wanted to know. Let's go to Victoria, where there's a bit of investor sort of fear and concern, and out there. So how would you negotiate on a property? I'll paint the scenario for you. Property's been on the market for 40, 50 days, and they haven't budged on their sort of budget. And the vendor sort of apparently seems firm. How would you sort of tackle? They haven't had a lot of interest. They had one or two offers, not near where the asking price is. How are you tackling that one, Scott?
Understand first of all the fundamentals of what the property is worth before you speak to the agent, and then ask the agent questions like: is the vendor ready to sell? Is the vendor ready to meet the market? What's the highest offer you've rejected? And try and engage them to build rapport, to give you more clues as to where the other buyer traffic has been on that property. And then put yourself in a position, if it's inside the parameters of where you see value, to beat those offers and possibly give them better terms, or what they want specifically. It might be to stay on there until they buy the next property, or lease it back short term, or whatever it might be. So look for ways to add value without putting more money on the table. But when I've seen something that's on the market for a little while, I really want to establish what your competition is. So that I want to get involved in a conversation with the agent to understand: is there anyone else running on it? What's been the challenge of selling in that marketplace? If I see something that I haven't been active in that market, I'll ring other local agents and ask them what the challenges are they're facing, and I'll talk to them about days on market. I'll talk to them about auction clearance rates, and I'll just get a gauge of what the market depth is, how difficult things are to shift, what properties are selling strongly. Like, for example, I was buying a property in Auckland today for a client. I don't work in New Zealand.
Kia ora.
I've had a past client ring me and say, hey, I want you to buy this house for me in New Zealand. It's the same thing. Go negotiate, do your thing. So it's $2.3 million house. So started on that process and did my own research based on comparable sales and based on competing listings that are on the market. And then I go to that next stage, which is what buyers should think of doing as well. in terms of how to build their negotiation. I went to the next stage of asking real estate agents that are local and competing in that marketplace that don't have that listing, where is this house positioned? What's happening in your marketplace right now? What are your challenges that you're facing with buyers when you're talking to buyers? When you talk to them, again, at that human level, you engage them, you ask them good questions that make them think and give you the right answers, stop and think and give you a detailed response. You get really quality, data points out of it. And that enables me to paint the picture about, okay, well, what can I expect in terms of buyer competition? Because you know that when you pick up the phone and talk to the agent, the first thing they're going to do to you is create competition. They're going to threaten you that there's another buyer that's in the realms, there's someone else in the wings, there's a previous offer that's coming back, there's a buyer that just needs to sell their house, and then they're going to be in the mix competing against you. So you need to understand some of those things can be true. Most of it is BS, and you've got to understand how to call the bluff on those agents. And it's the same approach with the agents. It's digging them in and asking them more questions about what they're telling you. So, okay, great, there's another buyer. Okay, great. Well, where are they in the process? Are they offering the same terms? Have they got a property to sell? Are they ready to sign an unconditional contract today? At what level do they need the property to be at to transact? How long have they been on this property for? So they must be obviously out there looking at other options as well. Because and I know that if there was a property in front of you that met all of your criteria, that was inside your price point, you would have bought it.
So and that's such and that is one of the things is that's a very, very fair question to ask, but is incredibly uncomfortable to ask if you're not, if you haven't done it before. So just know that it's okay to ask those questions, right? Like, oh, where is the other buyer? What are they up to? That's none of your business. They're not going to say that. It's going to put them on the back foot to be like, oh, you're a sophisticated investor. You know what you're talking about. Great. Let's go and great. Here it is. Here's the answer. This is why it hasn't. Well, actually, it's a first home buyer. They've got the banker mum and dad on their back. They can help them through that. I'm just stringing them along while I look for other offers. So I know 100% they're at 570,000. So where do you want to be? Well, what do you say to that? Like, let's just paint that scenario, right? I've got a first home buyer. I'm just look, to be honest, man, I'm stringing them along. So yeah, they're at 570. They're willing to pay more. Bank of Mum and Dad's going to price it. So, where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about it from me as an agent perspective, or if I was
if the agent said that back to you, of like, yeah, I've got this guy, I've got this first home buyer on the, like, that's their response to your question of where are the other buyers at? What do I then say as a buyer?
Well, I'd just be upright and up front and say to them, well, why haven't they bought it? Like, if it all stacks up and it's such a good property, why isn't it sold?
Yeah.
Yep. And then shut up and oh, well, and then this is where I guess when you get right into the weeds of doing this, where the patterns are in terms of psychology, human psychology, when you're talking in a negotiation where you see, you do things like that, where you basically, I'll shut it down and I'll say, great, well then they should buy it, kind of scenario. Well, they sound like your perfect buyer. Why don't you, get a deal done? Or why haven't you got a deal done already? And it's then that you see whether they're bluffing, because it's that point they'll just say something typically very short, which will be along the lines of, well, I probably will tomorrow. In terms of like, we're that close, we probably will. So the window's basically
they're very
shut,
confident.
pretty much. But that's good. That's what I want to know, right? Okay, there is a buyer there, right? Or they'll go into the, well, they've got blue undies on today and it's raining outside and they've got golf on Saturday, and then they're going to come back to us next week. And it's like, okay, so that's horseshit, right? So that as soon as they start telling you a story, this is where you've got to realize that that's where you've got to call the bluff. You've got to be strong enough and knowledgeable enough and confident enough at that point to go, okay, I can punch my way through that hole. There's not another buyer there. That's just a facade.
How do we?
Because if there's a buyer there, they're going to act.
Yeah. What's the best way to call that bluff?
Well, I don't think you need to address it necessarily. Like, you don't need to call the agent out on it. I just want to establish if they go in either of those two tangents. Do they give me a short, sharp, direct answer, which gives me confidence that they are dealing with somebody else, and that might be concluding with an offer shortly, or it's just hot air and they're just using it against you as a negotiation tool. And I think you can, if you get into that space, you can realize pretty quickly that there's a buyer there or there's not another buyer there.
One of the things
that's where you just keep driving.
One of the things I'm seeing is like, what happens when you're the only buyer? How do you bring forward and start, like, how do you push things along so that you're the only guy? Like, you know that you've got an offer here, you've got a property, you found a property, you know that you're the only buyer, but then you've got the agent stringing you along the journey, and you're that guy that's on the hook there. How do you kind of bring it forward, make it happen, and get this deal done? Because they're just stringing you along.
Yeah, you have to use leverage at that point. You have to have another alternative. You have to have something else that you're going to. You have to have the client that is giving you a short window, or if it's you that's handling this process directly, you've got to have something else to go to, and you've got to use that against the agent the whole time. And you don't use it in a way, like I said to you up front, that's a sledgehammer by saying, if you don't do this by X, I'm out. That stuff just kind of is a red flag to a bull to good agents. But you can say something along the lines of, my wife's just been sent something off market from another agent. They're bashing us to try and, like, looks like, we've seen this a month ago. We made an offer, they rejected it. They're chasing us and chasing us and chasing us to get a deal done there. This is our preference to get this done, but I just can't keep waiting. Either we get it done, today, or we move on. So unfortunately, I'm just going to have to draw a line in the sand and say to you guys, like, what's a realistic time frame to get this done? And that forces them to have an answer. It forces them to say something. And the answer might be, well, we're in no hurry. And you're like, okay, cool. Well, I'm never going to buy this, so fuck off. Like, that's, like, otherwise you're just going to be used as the the leverage point against everyone. So that to me straight away knows the vendor is not interested at your price. They're way above that. Yep. Yeah. So you might as well establish that really quickly. That's what I keep coming back to with everything that we're talking about. Get in and get out, learn those things fast and move on. Because as soon as this is why we never come back to them later, is because they're never going to meet the market, and they're just waiting for the other guinea pig to come along that's going to gazump, they're going to use your offer to get them to pay 20, 30, 50,000 more, and they'll then sell it, and which is beyond where you see value. So you have to flush them out.
That's a key point as well, because some vendors, to the upset of real estate agents, they want that price. They want their $600,000. Like, for me, I have real estate agents calling me all the time. They're like, Joe, we're your property manager. We want to sell your property. I'm like, you sell it for 600 and it's yours. And I know the market's 550. So they're never going to sell it for 600. But I know, like, they just don't list it to me because I'm not going to sell it. But there are vendors out there where agents are like, you know what, I'll take this person on and I'll try. But then the vendor gives them that hard line number of no, 600 is where it is. And if the agent just keeps trying, he just has them in the back books. One thing I find hilarious is if you call an agent, just know that no matter what property it is, no matter how long it's been on the market, they will answer the phone with the utmost confidence of, hey, oh yeah, 123 Smith Street. Yeah, it's going really well. What do you? It's always the most confident thing. So if it has been a long drawn out process,
they're trained to introduce competition as early as possible in the process, right? Because that's their leverage point against you. So you should just be aware of that, ready for that. But then it's understanding when it's real and when it's fake. And it's exactly what we just spoke about before. Can they confidently tell you there's another buyer there? Or do they need to tell you this whole backstory about this other purchaser, and you just know it's BS because they're trying to cover their tracks? Yeah, but that's the problem with off-market. Joe, exactly what you said. What happens? Like, there's a whole heap of sellers that don't want to meet the market. They just want their aspirational price.
Well, that's it. So what do we do in the case when it is us versus the vendor? So I see value. There's nowhere else. It stacks up at 580, but the vendor wants 600. Like, what are some of the ways that we can draw, like introducing competition to kind of get it out? But like, what are some other
questions? Like a good question that I'd ask in that situation is your vendor ready to sell?
Yeah.
Yep. Is your vendor ready to sell? And then often the agents will say to me, fuck, they're not. They're in la la land on price.
You've kind of broken that. You've broken that ice with them.
La la land. Yeah, they're not ready to sell. Good question. Yeah. Great question. Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
To be honest, you're pissing in the wind offering 550, which is all it's worth. All I think it's worth as the agent. You're wasting your time right now. Like, maybe come back in 2 weeks' time or a month, but they're just not ready to take 550. And I ask that question all the time, and I'm not shocked I get those responses, but it's still quite funny to hear an agent say to you, nah, they're not ready. They're nowhere near it. And it's because of exactly what you said. One thing is aspirational owners chasing a la la land price that they're never going to get. But why is there most of the time that la la land price is put there by the agents pissing in their pocket, trying to win the listing by telling them, hey, we've just sold one in the street. Oh, it's just sold for 550 at auction. Oh yeah, I can get you 600 grand. Come on the market. Come with me. I'll get you 600 grand. No one else can. And they suck them into that journey, and it's just not worth 600 grand. So then they're battling the buyer feedback the whole time and trying to condition the seller. And some sellers are just like, well, I'm not playing that game. I want my price, or I'm not selling at all. And this goes back to, you can't win them all, and you're better off understanding that in the first 72 hours and moving on. Because otherwise you just keep chasing these dead ends and dead ends and dead ends. And it's just a waste of money doing building and pest reports, contract reviews, the stress and heartache of going through these things and not concluding a deal. Better off to understand that and just move on. I love a good punch in the face early on. And because you just go, yeah, fair enough, I'm out, on to the next one. Because there's always another property. The one thing that you learn from doing this for 30 years is there's always another property. Always.
Oh, here's a good question. So
from Brendan Crawl, long supporter.
Oh, any tips for sniffing out an underprepared agent? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, agents that are out of
get a good
area
price off, Joe.
are, agents that are underprepared would be someone that's out of area, I think. They don't know the market dynamics that are happening. People that have got property management rent rolls that aren't active sales agents, I find those ones when they come to market are great. Obviously, private sellers. I love me a good old private seller. They're good ones. It's not an agent that it's
that 1-800 sell my home by myself.
That's
you have two distinct versions of a private seller. Two distinct versions of a private seller. One, that their shit don't stink and they want a stupid price, and all the agents have told them it's not worth that, and they still think they can get that price, and they're selling privately because they don't want to pay agent fees because they can do it themselves. And then people that have got no clue what they're doing and just want to save the money, and potentially they're under a bit of financial pressure, unfortunately. And that's where you've got the ability to turn the screw against less experienced negotiators and people that really don't understand the value of the property. I think on-site managers can be a good property, townhouse developments and things like that can be a good opportunity. Out of area selling agents, private sellers if you get the right ones. Inexperienced young agents I've found as well that get listings off their rent roll through their principal. Those are often really good ones to get at as well.
I just bought one for like $30,000 less, and I was like, this guy has no reviews on Google, like on the thing. I'm like, I've never seen this guy in the office, not in the office, sorry, in the area. Who the hell is this bloke? And he's like, yeah, mate, no, I'm new to the area. This is my first listing. And I'm like, okay, great.
He actually told you that? Oh, it's like the reverse of the too much information from the buyer. It's like too much information from the agent. Like, oh, yeah, I've been living there.
No. He was like, I've not been in the industry long. I'm like, so where were you before this? He's like, yeah, no. I mean, I've you can get incredible deals.
Subway.
But
look,
that's I think
okay.
One of my top
tips for a second though, and be serious. Let's focus on that bit for a second though, because I think this is one thing that I see in your group come up really often. That for me is a red flag, like ping, when I see it when someone posts about it or puts in the comments. Lots of people like to brag that they negotiated $150,000 off a deal, or they lowballed an agent and got a good deal. They didn't get a fucking good deal. They bought a shit property no one else wanted, right? So there's a fine line. Like, we do this for a living. There's not many deals that I can turn around and say, oh my God, that was a steal. If you buy good property in good locations that are sought after, you're not looking for the cheapest property. You're not looking for the weakest link in the chain in terms of that local property market. You want to buy properties that are in high demand. They're going to see great capital growth. Anyone that tells you they negotiated $150,000 off at 600 grand or 500 grand, whatever, probably bought a property that no one else wanted to buy, right? So, or it's positioned that way by the agent. They price position it at 650, knowing it's only worth 500 grand. And the only way they're going to sell it is for some goose to come along and pay 500 grand, thinking they got $150,000 discount, right? And that's price positioning. It happens every day in the real estate world. So I think this is a real thing that people have got to realize is you've got to understand the fundamentals of value. Once you do that, and once you realize that you want to buy high quality assets because they're the ones that appreciate, they're the ones that are going to be in high demand and competitive when you come time to sell it, they're the ones that people want to rent. There's not really a whole heap of bargains. I don't know, Joe, if you agree with me, but it's not like it's a bargain bin, 75% off sale. It just doesn't work like that in the real estate market. We buy well. I'm confident we buy really well, and that's our whole business model, is buying it at the lowest possible price. But there's none of this sort of ridiculous lowballing stuff that you see a lot of people that they believe is a badge of honor.
Well, I hear, I mean, you can definitely get some good deals based on some, like when you're in the market all day, every day, you will see opportunity. And if you know that market well, you will know opportunity, you know what a good deal is, and you can move fast on that deal. And you can see an underpriced asset that has terrible images, terrible photos, a brand new agent, that smells like an opportunity. And you can jump on that incredibly quickly, get a deal signed before they even acknowledge what's going on, and it's done, right? Like there are things like in this deal, prime example, right? It was listed on market. An hour later, I called up the guy. I was like, hey, what's going on? I'm ready to buy and buy, blah, blah. I got all the things that you just spoke about. And I'm like, look, I want to see the property. I want a clause in there that allows me to pull out of the deal for whatever reason. I want an inspection clause. Can you get the vendor to accept that? Yeah, not a problem. This is great. This is my first deal ever. I'm excited. I'm pumped. This is really good. And so there's those opportunities, but they don't come by very, very often. But
and you're talking about a $30,000 discount on a $500,000 property or $400,000 property or whatever it might be. Not 150, not a 30% discount is what I'm trying to say. Those things, there's a reason why they're selling like that. And unfortunately, a lot of investors that we deal with, and I'm sure it's the same with you, Joe, if they have looked at other properties or even potentially they own other properties, they've bought things in flood zones. They've bought things in fire zones. They've bought things within, close proximity to a major power line. They've bought things with major easement issues going through the land. And you realize there's a particular reason for why things are being sold cheaply. There's a issue with topography or weird shape of land. And
you'll see it on
certain things that drive value in property.
So I'm working in a very hot market right now, and I called up an agent. I'm like, I'm just looking at your property. This is listed. It's been on market for like 45 days. This is unheard of. What's going on here? And he's like, like you look at the photos and you can see that it's all very much a home job. So some properties will stay on the market and you can get a great price for it. But it's like, do you want to own that? Do you want to be owning it on a main road? Do you want to be owning it under those flight paths? No, you don't. It's not worthwhile in the long term. Yes, short term, the market's going to move and you're going to get some capital growth in it. But the problem is, the vacancy rates are going to change. The rental market's going to change, and you're going to be stuck. Stock on market's going to change. You're going to have a dud asset in a dud location. So it is. Would you rather pay $10,000 for a better property, $20,000 for a better property? Absolutely, 100%. You would want to.
The reason why there's multi-offer situations on the right properties is because people that are there on the ground are doing their research and realize it's a good quality asset. The feedback that I have the most from people that are viewing, because we deal with people that have effectively, viewing, owner-occupiers. Our investors are different, but our owner-occupiers that are looking at their own properties and bringing us those opportunities for us to analyze and negotiate. The constant feedback that we get from properties that they reject, and I had this tonight, I was talking to a client, was everything looks good in the photos online because they artificially light them. So you have to physically inspect these properties to understand what's dark and what's 100%. Light in real life. And then beyond that, anything that looks like it's been renovated well, you have to physically inspect it to understand if it's an IKEA reno versus a proper renovation. So there's all these fundamentals that go into this, that it might look good. And then this is the problem with people that are searching via realestate.com and make their decisions without physically inspecting a lot of these properties. Like I've written blogs about this, Jeff, that you probably looked at in the last couple of weeks around, my framework for buying a property when I'm looking at something to purchase is I inspect up to 50 properties, sometimes more. And it's because you can't tell the condition of a home until you've physically been in it. You can't tell the privacy issues that might be good or bad. You can't tell the natural light. You can't tell the road noise. You can't tell the traffic flow It's all those types of things that you need to physically inspect those properties before you can really understand the fundamentals of value. If you just look at realestate.com and think you know it all by looking in the sold section and the current section, you're going to get found out pretty bad in terms of where the value pockets are.
Most of the time, the agent's not putting up. Most of the time, the agent's not putting up the worst photos of the property.
Well, why would you, as an agent?
I've seen
some agents are just lazy, but
managed to buy. I want to get on this one because it's an interesting end twist at the end. ASAP. What's your best tip to close a deal ASAP? Offer the most money? Maybe not. Don't think so.
The best tip to close a deal ASAP for me is a straight up question that I ask 20 times a day when I'm dealing with agents: is what buys it? Yep. That's the best question to close a deal in the fastest possible way. What buys it? And I'm not interested in what offer the highest offer you've rejected, what your guide price is, how much interest you've got in the property. I don't give a fuck. What buys it right now? Yeah, and I'm just black and white, brutal, straight to the point, and that just puts them right on the spot, and they go, 860. You're like, okay. And then I'll go, what's the highest offer you've rejected? 830. Okay, well, what makes you think it's worth 860 if the highest offer I'll get into those things later. But I want to know
it's worth 860
through everything. Yeah. Tell me, justify to me why you reckon it's worth 860. Oh, look, the owner's already committed to another property. Oh, I don't give a fuck. It's not market value. That's their problem. They've signed a contract to buy another property.
The owner's already committed. Well, then you better sell in the next.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
I'll give you 831 and a half. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But what buys it is a great question, Tiff. If you can do that, that'll cut through the BS. That'll get you to a position where you understand, if they're serious to sell it and if they're ready to sell it today. And then you can make a decision if it's within your parameters to act on that really quickly.
And another really good one actually is silence. Like a real estate agent, well, not like people will fill silence. So you ask a question like what buys it and just shut up, put yourself on mute, hit the mute button and just like, I really want to fill this silence. Just keep the void because it will be filled with a good answer. So that's one thing is ask a good question and then just don't try and, because agents know this, right? Agents know that if they just be quiet, that you will fill the silence and you'll ramble on and talk a whole heap of nonsense. So use silence as your best friend. Ask really strategic questions and just be like, cool, what's the answer? How's that fit?
Yep. It's so good asking those questions. And you go, sorry.
A little tidbit. This is a very random sort of tip that Joe said to me once. He said, when an agent calls you up, you answer the phone saying, "Oh, Jeff speaking," even if you know who's calling you, and it works so well, and anybody, because then they're like, "Oh, hi," they're on the back foot straight away, and they'll tell you the reason they're calling, so you don't even have to, you don't even, and you just like you sort of say, Scott and Joe, just shut up, because then they'll tell you exactly what. It's like, oh yeah, we're sort of going to we're interested to sort of see if you're going to make an offer, and then you can sort of really sort of start to pepper the questions, and not pepper, but just kind of ask some pointed questions. But I found that's really
quoted. I'm glad to be quoted. This is lovely.
I'm going to stop answering the phone. Ciao, Bella. Every time now.
That works too, I reckon. Cool. This is an interesting one because Dan's asked what seems a really, I wouldn't say obvious, but it's a way that I think we could sort of have some value from this question. What's the best way to find what a property sold for as a guide for your next offer?
What's your answer to this, Jeff?
What do you guys reckon?
What's this? What's the answer for you, mate?
Ring up the agent and say, well, I appreciate this one's under offer. Call up the as you say. It's kind of boring because it's the best way to understand what the market's doing, because so call up one that's just gone under offer and say, well, I appreciate it's gone under offer. What did it sort of go for? And they'll give you a guide. They won't not give you the exact price. Some will just say 820, and they won't even sort of bother. And that's exactly what it sold for. But they'll give you an indication. Do that on 3 or 4 of similar assets. I mean, what else can you do, Scott? Is there anything else you can do?
I think you've answered it really well. The only thing that I would do in addition to that is say to the agent, I'm not interested in that property for myself. We're just using that as a comparable on something else. Even if you can just give me a ballpark, I'd appreciate it. I understand, I respect the fact you can't disclose the sale price. Most of the time, they'll tell you a range. Sometimes, as you say, you'll get the exact number, and sometimes you won't get it. But if you call through all of those properties that are under offer, you'll get pretty close to it.
Dan's nailed it. Am I close?
Yeah. Am I close? Is it between 323 and 324 and a half?
Off 2 times if it's 400. 5 times if it's
exactly.
420.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the questions is like, depending on where the cusp of the end result is, of like, obviously it didn't get into the 600s. No, it didn't. Or yes, it did. And you know that it's going to be within 10,000 of that. So it's like, cool, 600 plus. That's great. So what 610? No, it's not. No, it's 610. Exactly. Come on, don't be silly. But also it's just
it
like,
wouldn't have gone to 630, would it? No, it didn't go to 630. Did it get 615 or more? Oh, look around that. Okay, cool. Thanks, bye.
thanks, Johnny. But also they have no incentive to not tell you. You're not going to buy it. They're confident. If they're confident that the finance is going to go through, they'll tell you. But one of the other questions is like, hey, look, I'm new to the area. I just want to understand. Like, I'm trying to understand market value. Where did this end up? Obviously, the market as it is. You look like a stellar agent. You've listed it for 600. I reckon what, 645? Nah, almost 640. Yeah. Okay, great. Here we go.
The other thing I ask agents sometimes if I'm doing some exploration is say to the agents, okay, like totally understand that you can't disclose the price. You can give me a bit of a range, sure. Okay, cool. Between 6 and 650. Yep, cool. More importantly, how much buyer depth's in the market at the moment? How many people do you end up having compete on a property like that?
Yeah.
Oh, we had 5 offers. Okay, great. I'll just ask one final question. I'll leave you alone. Is it fair to say all 5 were kind of over 580 or over 600? Just to kind of give me a gauge of where I think the real sweet spot in the market is. And sometimes I'll just say, yeah, look, all 5 of them were over 600,000. Like, okay, great. Well, then that there's heavy competition on these properties, at an X level over a property. So I just kind of plant a few extra little questions like that to understand market depth.
Yes, that's very good, because those 6 people that had a $600,000 offer are now looking for that next deal that matches your brief specifically, and you're going to have to compete with them. And if you're at 580, you need to now move markets. You need to shift away from the asset that you're looking at, because just not there. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, 100%. And they've got the pain point. No, what I was going to say is exactly that. They've got the pain point now as well, right? Like they've missed once, they're emotionally invested, and they're more likely to spend more on the next property.
I wanted to throw another scenario or a script at you. This may go nowhere, but can and how do you negotiate a property that already has an offer accepted, or you're wasting your time? What do you reckon, Scott?
Depends on what offer accepted means. Like if they've exchanged contracts, there's no point.
Are they unconditional?
Wait for it to fall over. Well, even if they're conditional, there's no point because, the agent really shouldn't be negotiating with you anyway because, it's not within your control. So it could take 21 days or 30 days for you to find out if it falls over. So it's kind of pointless chasing things that are conditionally accepted. If there's an offer accepted, I think the only thing you can say in that position is, well, let's cut to the chase. If I made your vendor an offer they can't refuse, would they blow out the offer that you've already verbally accepted?
I tell you what, I have had offers.
And of course, you're only going to make an offer within your parameters, right? So you're never going to overpay. Yeah.
It's worth a shot because there have been offers that get verbally accepted by agents and then it just disappears. And then I never hear you chase them and it's exactly that. It is, the agent's working 5 clients right now. And what has to happen is that agent now needs to walk into their office, get a contract created, and then send that contract to a buyer. That buyer then has to have a chat down with Mr. and Mrs. They both have to sign it, and then it has to be sent back to the vendor to sign. That's a massive amount of time where at that point in time, someone else is still calling the agent. The property is still listed on the market. So you can still get in there. So even if it's been verbally accepted, go hell for leather. Like it's only until, oh, great. So you've got an offer? Fantastic. Where is it at? If I came in with an offer of 750, is that going to get the job done? Oh, well, they verbally accept it. Great. Would they verbally accept a 750? Because right now it sounds like you're at 740. Yeah, they would. Well, there you go. Good luck. If that's worth.
And an agent by law, an agent by law has to communicate all offers, written or verbal. So even so it's their job. They have to put that offer forward to the seller. Doesn't mean the seller's got to accept it, but they have to put it forward. So if that's the case, and you know that you've got 740, and then someone else is offered 750 with the same terms, well, then there's a strong chance the seller's going to say, "Oh, that thing that I said to you about accepting the guy at 740, I'll take the 750 one now." That's or what ends up happening is, why don't you play them off against each other and try and get 760, and try and create competition. So that ends up happening a lot. And look, if we unpack what I said to you at the start of the show, which is the deal that blew up in my face today, if you really get into the nuts and bolts of that possibly, Joe, is what happened today or yesterday. Someone came along and realized that they had lost the property in that 6-person bidding race. They'd lost it to us, and they may have come along and said, "Do you know what? We'll pay more for it," and had a crack at it after it was under offer. And then the greedy developer has sat back and said, "Actually, I think we can get more for this. I'm just going to put it on as offers over 950, take it away from all of them, and let them see who comes to the party and pays 970 or 980. So that could have been what happened in that situation as well. You'll never know, really. Like, we won't know.
Yeah,
come out in the wash.
And I think that's the key point as well, is you'll never know. Like, whatever the situation is, you will never truly know. Is the agent lying through their teeth and saying they've got a 550 offer? Maybe, maybe not. Like, when you do this enough, you'll start to pick up verbal cues, and you'll start to pick up tonality and desperation in their voice, but you can never actually know. So, like, there's no silver bullet in this. The person might just be lying. Like, it just might be, it is what it is. But you've got to go to a price at which you're comfortable with and put forward an offer that's going to get it best it's done, and push that as hard as you can so that you can secure it faster than anybody else. And that's, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and that's okay. And that's what happens. Everyone that's got an amazing deal has 20 other stories of a shit deal that's gone south.
Yeah, hits and misses. Greatest hits.
Yeah.
This is one that we did speak about. So, John, on our last session, we did unpack the auction sort of scenario, and I'll drop that in response so you can have a look. But just so we answer your question, John, heaps of gold nuggets. So starts off with a nice little compliment. That's a good way to start with an agent. Look, I love. What's your best tip to secure an offer pre-auction? Like, how do you run that process, the pre-offer auction?
I think what we've been talking about tonight, if John's listened to the rest of the session so far, is that the techniques are very similar. It doesn't make any difference whether you're buying prior to auction or you're buying private treaty, whether it's a expressions of interest or a fixed price. Speed is going to be paramount to everything you do. Understanding the fundamentals of what market value is crucial. And then, to the best of your ability, use an anchor point, like, to leverage against, to put yourself in a position where you won't be here tomorrow if they don't accept your offer. So without using the sledgehammer, you do it with the velvet sledgehammer. You put some time pressure and you reverse the fear of loss on the seller. So I know it's repetitive, but it's the same thing that is used through that whole time. And when you're playing against human emotion, and you understand that if you use the right dialogue, you use the right words, you write the right emails, the agent is going to use that. So I empower the agent in a way that I know they're going to feed that back to the seller, right? So I love writing emails and SMSs because I know they're going to forward it to the seller. Yeah.
I think that is actually. Can you talk more to that? I want to actually pull up. Yeah, because I want to pull up an email that I just wrote to a real estate agent for this exact reason. So can you go into that a little bit more detail? I'll try and find the email. So why,
Santa.
Why do we put it in writing? like you do text and email. How do you think about it that way?
I love SMS. SMS is my favorite because it cuts through all the bullshit, and agents will respond to you in real time, typically much faster than they will to an email, much faster than they will on a phone call. The reason is, on a phone call, they can buy time. They can say, "Yep, great. Well, I'll think about that. I'll put it to my vendor, and they'll give you a story. They got time to kind of think of a response." When you do it on an email, they're like, "I'll think about the right way to craft a response to this, and then I'll get the perfect response to negotiate against you." SMS, you typically get these one-line responses back because they're just, everyone in life is programmed to write like that on SMS. So you go, mate, what do I need to buy? 960. There's no like, well, the interest has been at 930 to 9, and blah, blah, blah. They give you the whole spiel. They just write back the answer, or they tell you what you need to do or what you don't need to do or whatever it might be. So I find SMS is really good. Kind of first. It is just cutting out, guys. If you get once you get beyond that kind of first line of communication, and you start to get into a position where you maybe writing a second offer or something that's deeper into the negotiation. Often I'll write a very short but well crafted email that's incredibly deliberate in the type of wording and structure of the sentences to allow the agent. How do I word this properly? I'm trying to do the heavy lifting for the agent, because I know the agent doesn't want to have that conversation with the seller. Yeah. I know that, and this is where it has such an advantage being an ex-agent, because I can sit there and go, what I really want to say to Joe, my vendor, is fucking wake up, Joe. It's only worth $950. Fucking take it. I'm sick of this. I've been at it for 6 weeks. This is the best offer you've fucking take.
That's actually not. That's not even internet. That's just the sensor.
Value is X, and the comparable sales are here, and we really need to take this offer seriously, because they're a long way down the line on another property. If we don't look at this this option, they may well be gone. They won't be here tomorrow. So I basically craft this email that I know is like, oh wow, that's a great email. I'm just going to forward that straight to the seller, because it's going to do all of the things I want it to do as an agent to close that deal. And that's how I close a lot of deals. It's like, I'm going to do your job for you. And they love it. The agents absolutely love it, because it's like, okay, great. You just saved me having a really ugly chat with my seller. I'll just blame it on you. I'm fine for them to blame it on me, because I want to buy the property.
Okay, Scotty. Well, I've opened up my email inbox, and I am willing to take your critique, because I love you as an expert, and I want you to critique my email and give me your thoughts. I want to set the scene for the people. I'm currently working a deal that is actually, this is my own personal deal. So this is not for a client. This is for myself. It's a block of 4 units in the state of Victoria. And then I'm also working another deal at the same time, because I'm going to buy one of them. So I don't care if I buy your one or I buy their one. To be honest, what I say in this email is the truth of, I prefer this I prefer this property because it's got 4 units. So it's a 4-unit property in Victoria. Anyway, okay, cool. So critique, give me your thoughts on this email, Scotty Aggett.
Can I just say, Joe, if you're not buying it, can I buy it?
Oh, mate.
Sounds pretty good. I don't know the price.
The problem is, well, you'll hear it throughout the email. So, hey, agent, great work on beating us down to the final dollar. Doesn't feel good, but it's good to know you're worth your salt as the agent. I've chatted to the, okay. So I have a client.
Chatted to the person. Yeah, chatted to the person. Yeah.
The best and final of where we see value it stacks up is at 992,000. In speaking with the person, they are really at the point of needing to move on this other deal, as we discussed, and it's quite time limited. So I chatted previously and was like, hey, look, we have a bit of time. The open home is on Saturday, and the agent's closing the deal on Saturday. So I just flagged that previously. Today's, Wednesday today. So we've got plenty of time. But it's Wednesday today. It's coming up to Saturday. Let's go. The preference is yours, as it has 4 units, but it just comes down to an investment decision. I want to have full transparency, so you know what the other deal is in the mix. Here it is here. Here are all the numbers. It's running at a 7.5% yield. Victoria has a new land tax, and the yield is nowhere near 7%, meaning that we can't stack the property above the $992,000 purchase price. We'd be happy to go in at your $1.1 million price, but it just doesn't stack up. We prefer the 4 units, which is why I think we can get it done. These guys are finance approved and ready to buy, and it will be a super smooth transaction. Can we get this wrapped up today? And then showed them the other property that I'm buying with the numbers and of the yield.
You've just thrown a lot at Scotty there. I think you needed to send it to him before the show. But
no, that's fine. I'm just listening intently. I mean, is that it? You finished?
That's it. Yeah. So let's get this wrapped up.
I like it. I like it. I think it's good. The only thing I would say to you that I would never do is tell them what the other property is. But I in even a photo of it or an address or anything, because as an agent, I would just pick that to pieces.
Well, I covered up the actual address and presented them with my property pack. Like I have my own tech platform for a property pack, and showed them all of the actual statistics, but not the actual address. So yeah, I did that.
I think that's fine. I think that's totally fair. Sorry, my dog's going to say hello to you in the background at the moment, but I think that's totally fair. I think that is well crafted. Yeah, so if you don't show the property address, that's great, because the agent will pick that to pieces and really say, okay, well, this is the weakness of this, this is the pros of ours, blah, blah, blah. You never want to get into that battle. I love the idea that you've put up, these are the returns that the client is after, and these are the returns we can get here, and these are the returns that we can get on property B, and therefore that's why we've arrived at that price, because you've really broken it down to, well, if it only works for us at the numbers, and the numbers say X, beyond that we're out. Yep, but I think that's really good. The only thing I was going to say is just own the I'm out bit. Really, like in terms of, we really want to buy it exactly like you did. You used the word preference, which was great. But if we can't make this work by X, we need to move on. I'm getting pressure from that other agent to pull the trigger, and we just won't be here tomorrow. So we'd love to get this done, but it's now or never. Yep.
Yeah, my favorite part of that is exactly that. It is acknowledging that your deal is a really good deal, but I can get 7.5% interest somewhere else. Like, it's not me. I'm not being emotional about this. It is purely an investment decision. So either you take it at 992. I'd love to buy it at 1.1, but that takes it down to a 5.2% yield, which doesn't stack up anywhere in the world of property investing. So as an investor, you're selling a product that is to investors, and it's just not going to stack up. But I think taking the time to write something. So I had this conversation with the guy, right? I had that chat with the real estate agent. I told him all of these things, but then I'm like, well, I'm going to put that in writing, because all he is going to do is screenshot, Mr. Vendor, what do you want to do? Because I know there's no other serious offers on the table. And they have a choice. Yep. Are they going to accept my offer? Because I have acknowledged as well, look, you are worth your salt. You have got us to our final offer, but this is it. Walk away.
How did the initial what did it start at anyway? Like, what do you have, 950 or 960?
Yeah, so it started at 975, and they're at 1.1, 975. Then we moved up.
Were they both in the same state, or were you saying one's in one state, one's in the other?
Two different states, yeah. That's why I mentioned the land tax.
So the only other thing that I think is, I think being vague on that would be stronger. If you're going to, like, I'd almost just use your spreadsheet and say, here are the numbers on property 1 and property number 2, because as an agent, I would that would kind of put my, I get a bit put out by that, and I'd say to you, okay, well, you're comparing apples and oranges, you know what I mean? Like, go buy in fucking WA or wherever you want to, because this is what the prices are in Victoria. So the price you got to pay is $1 million, to buy this property or whatever it is. Like, I would use whatever I can against you there, in terms of, well, they're two different states, mate. Like, you don't have a clue. Make your mind up. You're buying in Victoria or not. Yeah, are you serious about buying Victoria? Because these are the prices in Victoria, or whatever it might be.
And we have land tax down here.
Yeah, that's just a given. That there is land tax here. Who gives a fuck? That's just, everyone knows that, right? Like, you can't use that against us in a negotiation. It's priced in. So I think you're 99% of the way there. I would get rid of the acknowledgement of another state or another address or whatever, or another picture, and just keep it focused on the numbers, and just say, yeah, we're weighing up another property locally at this versus these returns. And it only works for us at a 7% return, so therefore we're prepared to pay 992 or whatever it is, and let's go. Let's get it done. Otherwise, really good email.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile taking the time to craft something like that, so it does get out there into, like, just take, because that took me time to write out, right? Like, I'm very busy. I don't have time to piss about with emails. Had that chat with the agent, but I took the 15-20 minutes to write, 10-15 minutes to write that email. That's the difference between a deal or not a deal. So just, like, that's more of a tip to the investor out there. Take the time to put the effort, because that's the little 1%, like I'm sure you see this all the time. Every little question that you ask, Scott, is a 1%, 1% tip, 1%, 1%, and those add up, and you'll get the deal because of that. So you need to do these little extra bits, and it makes the world of difference. It means it's the difference between getting a deal or not getting a deal.
Totally. And this is the hard thing in negotiation. And I'm not pumping my own tires here for a second, because there's lots of people that have got great negotiation skills. But even my business partner, Drew, is a really good salesperson. He's got empathy. He's really switched on. He's got great product knowledge. He understands human emotion. He's been a fantastic phone salesperson for many years, selling high ticket, high value ticket items. But even Drew will admit, we have this conversation all the time. When we started, when he came into the business as a CEO a couple of years ago, he said, well, how hard can it be? You're an expert in the space. I'm a sponge. I'll learn as much as I possibly can through osmosis. I'm going to sit next to you. I'm going to live and breathe what you do. And you can coach me up into being an expert negotiator next to you. And I said, it's never going to happen. And he was really put out by it. I said, well, what do you mean? I'm a gun salesman. Why can't you do that? And I said, because I believe that it's exactly that, Joe. It's all of these 1%ers that you do, but beyond that, it's understanding what would I use against you in this situation when I was the agent? So what do I know is going to come at me right now? Because what would I say to you, Joe, in that situation that I know in reverse? It's almost akin to counting cards, and I don't mean that in a wanker way, but I just mean, if you sit there long enough and you understand how to play, cards at the casino, that you've got the ability to count cards to be able to, outpace the casino, right? Like, you understand what's coming next. It's in a similar way that if you do this often enough, there's patterns that you know that, okay, well, 60% of the time, if I say this line right now, it's gonna win me the deal. Or 60% of the time, I'm going to use this line against this buy, and they'll do exactly what I want them to do. Or this only works a few percentage of the time, but this is a bit of an awkward situation. I'm just going to throw this joker into the pack and see what happens. Because that might just get me across the line either way here. Like, there's just different things that and it takes time in that seat to understand the right things to say. But I think fundamentally what we've done over a lot of these sessions is really work out that there's some real sort of major patterns that happen across every deal. And there's a series of really good questions that if you ask them, that it'll give you the data points that you need to then, double down and push your cause to get the outcome you need. So there's a lot of it that can be done by just asking the right questions and understanding what's going to happen in real time. And then the rest is just practice.
You need to understand what they believe the value of the property to be. Like, that's fundamentally the core question that I want to understand, because like the way that I see, the way I've written it down for the team, right? Like, the way that I see property negotiation is kind of built into, where's my 4 phases of negotiation? The first call is like pre-inspection. You have to understand what the situation is, but you still have to inspect the property, right? Like, you're negotiating from step 1. So the first call is all about like the price, the terms, can we buy it before open, and when can we inspect it? Like, if you can, so let's just say, so tomorrow, everyone's going to wake up tomorrow. You're going to get the most amount of listings on real estate ever. Thursdays, Fridays, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, heaps of listings on real estate that are going to go to the open. If you can buy that property before it goes to the open, you will have a 99% of the time, if it doesn't go to open, you will most likely get a better price if you can secure it, right? Then the other one is putting forward your offer. That's another negotiation point where you have to get good at putting forward your offer so you can secure it. And then when you've got the property under contract, it's then doing the pest and building or doing some inspection and then renegotiating it. And then there's a bit of admin negotiation when it comes to like pre-settlement. Not as much, really. It's really those first 3 phases. But we've gone on for way too long. We've got an hour 40 minutes. I think we need to wrap this up.
I do want to ask this. I want to ask this on though before we.
What tips do you recommend?
A lot of
you go on, Jeff.
You're up against an agent that is more experienced, so you don't get steamrolled.
Well, every single agent is going to be more experienced than you. So
every single agent. Yep.
Every single agent.
What are your thoughts on this, Scotty? I've got my kind of number 1 tip I would tell people to do. But what do you reckon?
Well, I think we've spoken about it heaps. Like if you understand, the market value, you've seen all of the market dynamics at play. So you understand buyer depth, real-time buyer depth. You understand what real-time market value is for property. So you're attending auctions. You're asking the properties that are under offer what they're selling for in real time, and you get a gauge of how long it's taken properties to sell, how far they're going beyond, agent guide prices or whatever, just to sort of get a gauge or a read on how low people are underquoting in the area and what things are really trading at and how many buyers are competing for it. So we've discussed all of those things here tonight. It's difficult to get fleeced by an experienced agent because the comparable sales evidence. So, let's say, for example, the agent you ring up and the property's come on the market and the agent that's very experienced says, yep, great, yeah, well, the guide price is offers over 500,000. Well, to cut through that, we've already discussed that one of the questions could be, what buys it, right? Now, if they don't give you an answer that you like,
can we play this out, Scotty? Because I think that you'll be able to tear me down pretty quickly. So I'm the real estate agent. I've just listed a property for offers. It doesn't even have an offer. Like, it's just like contact agent. So that's very scary for somebody when they're going into the market, because they're like, well, shit, I don't know. Like, well, what's the price meant to be? I don't know how good I'm going to be as an agent. I've never done the agent side of things.
Do a line of
like,
and get your BMW lease out, and then let's go. Let's talk.
It's not too hard.
Let's give it a shot, right? Like, oh, ring, 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 ring. Hello, this is Mr. Agent.
Oh, ring, ring. Hello.
This is Steve. This is Chambella. Steve from At Realty. What's going on? Hello.
G'day, Steve. It's Scott from Hello House. How are you, mate? Lovely to connect with you. Steve,
thank you.
I've just seen 12 Smith Street come on the market. Looks like a fantastic property. Yes. Steve, look, I'm working with my client, Jeff. Jeff's been working the local area for the last couple of months. We've been really active chasing lots of different things in the area. In fact, we're under offer already on a property that's off market locally down the road, and Jeff's ready to pursue that one and wrap that deal up as quickly as possible. But we've just seen that property come on the market in Smith Street that looks amazing. Steve, where do I need to position Jeff to buy this if we jump ship from the property that we're on now? Given we've got a bit of time pressure on this, I just want to cut to the chase, mate. Where do I need to position Jeff to secure this one if he's serious on it?
Yeah, well, as you can see, it's a fantastic property. Look, you can see it's fully renovated inside and out. Lot of inquiry on it already. We're running our first open on Saturday. It would be great to see you guys there to get something. It's Wednesday now. Obviously, we've just listed it. I've got a lot of buyer inquiry. So, would you be able to, like, I guess let's get this thing going. I'll see you there.
Yeah, look, we'd love to be there on Saturday. But as I said, unfortunately, Jeff's already a long way down the line on this other property. So I've got a little bit of time pressure on me. Don't shoot the messenger, mate. It's the other agent that's putting the pressure on me and not the other way around. But look, Jeff doesn't want to lose that opportunity because, as I said, they've been looking for months. This is really in their preferred location within the suburb. This would be their preference in terms of the photos you've got. I agree. The place looks beautiful. I'm not surprised you've had a great response to it already. I think it's going to be a really popular one. And look, we're not afraid to pay the right price for the property, Steve, because we know that good property is going to command good prices in this location, and we're only interested in buying, a property that's going to be in high demand when they come to sell it, and obviously give them great lifestyle benefits as well. So the problem that I've got, Steve, is that the agent on the other property has told us if we don't exchange by close of business Friday afternoon, and today being Wednesday, they're going to put that property on the open market. Jeff's been, adamant that he doesn't want to lose this. This thing's just come out of left field, the one that you just put on the market. So if we can get in tonight at 7 o'clock, we'll be able to put ourselves in a position really quickly where we can give you a definitive answer. I think we're going to be one of the strongest buyers in the marketplace for your sellers because we know the market so well, because we've done the research in the market. We understand where the value sits, and we can pull the trigger really quickly, unconditionally. Can you get me in at 7 o'clock tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. We can get you in. I guess it's going to put us out a little bit. The vendors are obviously quite busy at the moment, trying to organise, get ready for the weekend open. Where are you seeing value? Where is this fitting in with what you want?
Well, we've been tracking that 3-bedroom house market really closely for the last couple of months, so we're really confident that we know where the value sits. And this is obviously in one of the better streets, and it's a great floor plan. The photos look fantastic, so I can see how this is going to obviously command a premium. So as I said to you, we're not scared to pay the right price for the property, as long as it checks out in the flesh as it looks online. So we'll see you there at 7 o'clock tonight, and then we'll take it from there. Thanks very much for getting us through quickly. So the purpose of that first conversation for me is to create an opportunity that no other buyer has. Yep. So everyone else is coming at 11 o'clock on Saturday, and we're coming 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. Now, and the only reason we're coming up at 7 o'clock tonight is because I'm going to make you an offer tomorrow that you can't refuse, right? And you either refuse it or you'll accept it. And if you don't accept it, then we don't care. Yeah, insert lowball offer. Never.
No, well, that's what I find interesting about that is you made it very, very clear that this is a beautiful property. This is an awesome property, pumping up the real estate agent's tires. And the best part is if it's
they think you're going to pay a premium for it. You're going to pay a premium for it, right? That's why they want you to come in the door.
So, how many people we got listening? Do people want to hear the second call, or are we just having fun for the sake of having fun?
There's probably 70 or 80 people still watching. I want to know though. I want to have a question. Oh, I do have a question about that. Is you didn't ask anything about price or what buys it? Is that kind of in the follow-up calls? You wanted to see if you could buy it first.
I think I should have in that first call. I probably just missed that. Just then is to establish
where. I was just wondering because I want to make sure that
good pickup. Yeah, I would have asked then in terms of where do I need to position Jeff to be serious to buy.
You didn't ask, but then Joe kind of gave you the roundabout. Joe was being difficult.
Yeah, so that's good. Good pickup. I would have really honed in on that to try and get that done. 9:30 at night. My brain's fried. Sorry.
Ultimately, go on, mate. Yeah, well, if the price doesn't, if the price isn't within, if the price isn't within what you're willing to pay, then you can just bluntly say it, right? Like, what 750? What's your closest comparable to that? I mean, we're just kind of reverbing back to what we were talking about before, right?
Yeah.
Like where
exactly.
we're at. So,
what's your best comparable that you've got for the property? And that's a really good way to cut through the guide price, because that's what we were talking about before. Is how do you work out the realistic guide price and whether or not it's a property that's within your parameters. So I would ask what buys it, then I would talk about what's your best comparable sale that you're sort of hanging your hat on. And that's a really good one to cut through as well, that we use a lot, because an agent will say, well, offers over 500, and say, and you've got to have the confidence to say, oh great, but didn't Smith Street just sell on Saturday for 560? And they're going to go, oh yeah. So, well, where do you think this sits against Smith Street? And that puts them in a position where they've got to give you an answer, right? And they're like, well, it's better than that. Oh, okay. So yeah, north of 560 then. Okay, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, 550 ain't going to be the price. So now it's 100%. North of 560. And then when we're in the negotiation, I'll ask that exact same thing again. I'll just say, okay, great. So just remind me, in terms of arriving at the value, and I use this against, I try to pretend that I'm almost on their side to build rapport and say, okay, great, just so Joe, just so I can position my client Jeff at the right level where he's got to buy it. What's the latest? What's the best comparable you think you've discussed with the vendors? What do you guys workshop that you think where this needs to be? Because forget the 5 to 550 quote. That's bullshit, right? He's going to then turn around and say to me, "Oh, look, Jones Street sold for 610 on Saturday Arvo, and look, this is very close to Jones Street. I mean, might not. This third bedroom's a little bit smaller, but the backyard's a couple of square meters bigger. And look, I think their expectations are probably in line with somewhere around Jones Street. So in other words, you've gone from 5 to 550, asked a couple of extra questions, and realised they're at 610. And that's what you knew it was going to be anyway, based on your comparable sales evidence, because Jones Street sold on Saturday for 610. So you just want to kind of edge your way there. Now, if they don't introduce Jones Street at all, you might think, well, they're just useless at their job. And that plays on what we discussed before. They're inexperienced. They don't have that product knowledge. And that may be the opportunity where you can turn the screw and save $20,000 or $30,000. But if they do know those sales, and you can almost always bet they do, because their product knowledge should be really good, then you've got to formulate a way of then using leverage against that to try and get that price down. Or start to chip away at that house, as I said to you, in a really nice human way to say, yep, great. Yeah, I can see how you found that comparison to Jones Street. Yeah, totally can understand why they're sort of aligning themselves with that one. Look, we love this house. Look, I guess the challenge for Jeff, our client, is just that awkward shaped land at the back, and just that small third bedroom. Because what I'm doing is like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. I understand you're Jones Street, and I'll fucking raise you on Jones Street because Jones Street had a better third bedroom and a traditional backyard. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'll pick that sale apart, but I'll do it in such a way that I'm kind of, passively attacking the target property that I'm trying to buy. Yeah, and it's subtle, but it's very, very obvious to an agent. They're like, yeah, I get it. It's got a small third bedroom and an awkward backyard, and they'll use that against the seller. They'll go back and say, yeah, well, look, they understand Jones Street's a great comparable, but they also understand that it's got a better third bedroom and a better backyard than yours. So that's why they've come in at 590, and they're not here tomorrow. So do you want to accept 590 or they're out?
Let's do call number 2.
Call number 2, mate. We've been on here for bloody 2 hours. Let's.
The crowd was calling.
No, he just answered call number 2. That was unreal. You crushed it there, Scotty Aggett.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think if you like, this is the crazy thing. We've got 50, 60 people that have stuck through this.
Thank you.
We started this thing with 150 people. It's these people that are actually taking notes and going through this and putting the effort in that you'll get the results if you implement these few things. I implement them daily and I get amazing results because of it. Scott uses them every single day. There's nothing that Scott is hiding from us in what he does to negotiate amazing deals. In fact, I hear things from other agents that are like, oh, that these things work. How'd you come up with that? Yeah, actually that helps me a lot to go back to my vendor and secure this price. Scotty Aggett, this is what you do day in and day out though. So how do people learn more about you? How do we actually get this kind of service? There was a question that came up right at the beginning. What did he say? He said, quick question for Scotty Aggett. For the investor who's choosing to buy his own IP for $400,000 to $500,000 and keen to your service, how do we learn more about how you can help negotiate and secure amazing deals for us above your fee?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, fair question. So without I don't come on here to bang on about Hello House the whole time. This is exactly what Joe just said just then. This is a warts and all version of what I do day in, day out. I love sharing what I do. I'm really passionate about it. So hopefully people can take away lots of little nuggets or different strategies or frameworks and things to get an advantage. That's all about this community, which is why I love this community and being a part of it as well. So thank you guys for bringing me onto the show. In terms of what we do though day to day, in terms of where we believe we add value, is the reason I left being a real estate agent is because it was all lies. I lied to the clients all day and they lied to me all day, buyers and sellers. And anyone that tells you anything different to that is full of shit. Excuse my French. So I made a conscious effort to leave a really well-paid career that I didn't have to leave. I was good at it, not in an ego way, but that was a successful career that I could have stayed at it and made my fortune in. And I left because I wanted to really do something that was transformational and gave back to buyers and to try and, I hate the term level the playing field, because I'd like to think we're better than that. We go even further than that by using all these tricks and tips and things to help you get a better advantage than just leveling the playing field against an agent. But part of all of this is about transparency and accountability. So how we add value is in the negotiation and in the analysis, we record everything we do. So in the analysis, we do over 1,000 of those every year. For 6.5 years, we've tracked every market analysis we've ever done versus the eventual sale price, whether we bought that property or missed. And for 6.5 years, we've been within 2% on the conservative side of the eventual sale price. Now, we buy at every price range across the country, sight unseen. That's a phenomenal number that I'm incredibly proud of. So we'll definitely add value in understanding the right price to pay incredibly quickly. Typically within 3 to 4 hours of you seeing the property, we'll have the full analysis done with that number, and we'll own that number down to a $5,000 increment. So there's no gray area in terms of what we do at Hello House. Now, when we get into the negotiation, we ask you on the basis of seeing that analysis, how to set your target price, which is your maximum walkaway line in the sand. How we quantify the value we add is the saving that we make you below the target price. Our average purchase price nationwide is $1.3 million. Our average saving below that target price is $41,600. So we know that our clients paying, say, $5,950 are 5 to 6 times better off just in the negotiated savings alone. So we'd like to think that with all these tips and strategies and frameworks that we can, fundamentally save you money Some of our clients save no money. They save zero money. Some of our clients save hundreds and hundreds of thousands or even $1 million, which is the best deal we've done at Hello House, below the target price. I'd say the vast majority of the ones that are at $0 are some of our best outcomes ever. And that's because we won in a heavily, competitive process, sealed bids, a multi-offer situation, whatever it might be, against multiple other parties. And we've bought that property within the buyer's parameters, inside our market value, and we've secured it over 6 or 7 other people. And I've showed you how we do that tonight as well, if you watch that back and understand some of the things that we use. So even saving $0 can be some of the best outcomes possible. So yeah, I'd like to think that, negotiation can be lots of different things to lots of different people. Analysis and negotiation, or also husband and wife, or husband and husband, or wife and wife. They go together like Vegemite and cheese.
Vegemite and cheese. Oh, geez.
Gross.
So good.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the place, and I've dropped it on the Facebook stream. They've cut us off the Facebook sort of third party sort of stream provider, but that's so jump on hellohouse.co about us, and we also have the discount there with Ozprop. If you pop Ozprop, actually it's the link, so I should bring the link up. But you can see the link there. There is the discount. But people have loved it. Like, people are saying great learnings tonight. Thank you, Scott, Jeff, and Joe. Thanks, guys. Bloody brilliant, guys. Thank you. Thanks, guys, for all this good session. Thanks, Scott. So people have loved it.
Bloody hell. People are going nuts.
Nice.
Let's do it.
I'm sorry the internet was so shitty today as well. But look, and the other
thing got better.
We spoke about this previously. Yeah, it did when I changed to hotspotting. The course is there, the Get Buy Ready course that I wrote, my 30 years of experience broken down into that. If people want access to that, just reach out and email me directly, scott@hellohouse.co. Because I think a lot of this framework, a lot of this thinking is in that course. And if we can help people get a better outcome on the next property they buy, even if they go it alone and they don't use Hello House, that's an awesome outcome, and that'll be great for the community to hear that feedback. So go get educated.
Check it out. Let's go buy a property. See you guys later. Good luck.
See you.